Hey, what's going on, everybody? Is here once again, and I've got a neat little, probably like a mini build diary to share with you guys. I don't know how long I'm gonna play this character or how far I'm really gonna push this. This is just something I leveled the other day for fun to play around with, and it's actually pretty strong. And it was pretty fun to play. But again, I don't know how much I'm really gonna play this simply because it's very similar to Bone Shatter, and I'm kind of wanting to like build up my anticipation for that. Because I'm currently planning to league start Bone Shatter in my private league when that starts, so I don't want to like, you know, kind of like burn myself out of the play style ahead of time. That being said, I still may play the character more. I'm just undecided yet. So if you don't see another episode for this character, don't be surprised. So this is Physics Giga Chad, and as you may notice, I'm utilizing one of the new uniques, Echoes of Creation, which is the slam helmet that Ben made that drops off of Shaper. The character's only level 81. As you can see, I'm like pretty, you know, low HP, pretty low level, not a whole lot going on here, running on a 5-link. So I'm just gonna throw in a Villa. So I've been swapping back and forth between EQ and Earthshatter. I'm not going to showcase Earthshatter. I'm just going to showcase EQ because I think that's what I'm going to end up playing, just because I've played Earthshatter 100,000 times. And I still love Earthshatter, but I think it's just more unique to play EQ in this setting. So 5-link EQ. Let's go ahead and hit this map. If you guys are curious, my weapon DPS this is about a 600 PDPS axe. I think endgame I'm still going to go back to a Karui chopper. Excuse me. I just don't have any on my my loot filter, and I keep forgetting to put any on my loot filter. I should do that later. I need to make a note when I'm running around on my Inquisitor to pick up some bases to craft. So I only had ball axes lying around, so I just made like a kind of semi-decent ball axe. So this character is utilizing precise technique. I basically just took the whole like Bone Shatter meta right now and applied it to slams with the helmet. There's a lot of really cool mechanics that I'll go over once I'm, you know, like finished with the map, because I don't want people who don't care and like skip over the map showcase to miss the important mechanics. So I'll just wait. But it was a blast to level. It was super fun to level. I've been having a ton of fun actually being able to use Seismic Cry again, because I have not touched Seismic Cry at all since Ultimatum League, the last league before it was deleted from the video game effectively. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, but being able to use Seismic Cry again feels amazing. Clear is nice, as you guys can see. Again, this is red maps and my character's level 81. Like you can see, I've gotten like a ton of XP since the start of the level. I mean, yeah, like this is like a level every other map at this rate, not even using the Sentinel. So very fresh character. He clears well, and you have Call of Steel to, you know, clean up stragglers, and it is smooth. You don't need to spam your war cries, you know, too much while clearing. For the most part, just keeping up Seismic is enough damage while running around, and then you pop Rallying Cry for like rare monsters, and then essence monsters and stuff. I'll pop Intimidating too. All right, so I guess we'll kill this Harvey first. Executioner is the scary mod, man. Yep. Smooth. Okay. And boss dead. So pretty smooth, especially how low level this character is. Obviously tons of upgrades to be made. He's not even on a 6-link. So like I said, it's utilizing a bunch of mechanics that Bone Shatter likes, and I guess I'm going to start with the premise of the build and why I even thought to do this to begin with. So Echoes of Creation, for those of you who don't know, slams have effectively been dead ever since 3.15 Expedition. With, you know, because that was the nerf apocalypse where they nerfed everything in the game by, you know, a metric fuck ton. Like, let's be real. And then slams got like the double, triple, quadruple hit from all angle treatment that GG likes to do, where they, you know, mana costs were increased. You know, melee builds got hit the hardest by that for, you know, some ironic reason, which meant putting life tap and everything. Like, slams already had like the most socket pressure in the game. That patch made it worse because now everything has to be linked to life tap. And then second wind got gutted, so it now increased the cooldown of things. And then Fist of War got extra gutted to the point where it was basically not worth using. Like, there were so many things that changed. And then the biggest thing is Seismic Cry lost all of its damage. So I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but basically Seismic Cry had, it was like, attacks exerted by Seismic Cry did 20 or 30% more damage, just baseline. And then every subsequent attack, exerted by Seismic Cry would deal an additional whatever damage, and then by the end, you know, it was like 70% more damage, or like, it was ridiculous. They took that away completely. It's been thrown around, you know, cosmetic cry. That's what people call Seismic Cry nowadays. So Echoes of Creation kind of gives it its identity back a little bit. There's some cool stuff that we can do here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the helmet first and foremost, why it's important, and it really helps the build kind of become its thing. So Cries have been majorly dead outside of playing it as Earthshatter Berserker. Earthshatter because it's like the highest damage slam because you get so many attacks per exerted attack. Berserker because it gives slams enough damage to be kind of relevant. Now, the flavor of playing it has like changed drastically because you couldn't really run Seismic Cry with it because you didn't really have the sockets to run Seismic Cry, and playing 4 Warcry slams typically feels really bad. And then without Seismic, you don't have that huge AoE, which, and for me, was like the most fun thing about slams, was just you get the big damage and the big AoE, and that's your reward for, you know, micromanaging all these different buttons and like StarCraft level APM, right? They took away the big AoE, and now it's a lot of work for okay damage and no AoE, you know. So it was still fun to play. I still played Earthshatter a lot, but it, you know, it didn't feel nearly as good as it used to. But this is where the helmet comes in. So what does the helmet do? Okay, well, first off, socketed Warcry skills have +1 cooldown use. This is big. This means that we can run our Warcry setup in our helmet instead of our axe, because we can run it on a 4-link instead of a 5-link optimally, because we get second wind for free without the downside of it also increasing the cooldown. So that alone already makes it really nice. That lets us run all of our Warcries, all of our 3 Warcries, and just run it with life tap, which is very cool, right? Second off, it gives you a bunch of armor. This is low rolled. It's literally like bottom rolled on the life and the armor. So it's 80 to 120%. And I rolled 81 and 59 life. So you can get basically 1,000 armor on your helmet, which is huge. That's basically like a chest piece worth of armor. You can see that the helmet right now has like 25% more armor than my chest piece does. So it's crazy, and it can get even more. So you can get tons of armor in the helmet, which is really, really nice and useful. I'll go over why in a second. And it's this. When you attack, take 15% of life as physical damage for each Warcry exerting the attacks. So this can roll between 15 and 20%. And then I'll cover more on the mechanics in a second. Skills deal 15% more damage for each Warcry exerting them. Okay, so you take 15% of your life as phys damage, and your skills deal 15% more damage for each Warcry exerting them. Which means for only Seismic, every time we attack, you notice we'll take 15% of our life as phys damage, right? And then we get 15% more damage on the attack. So with only Seismic Cry, so basically Seismic Cry now with this helmet turns into a 15% more damage multiplier when it's active, which makes it worth running, kind of, right? So this is where other stuff comes in. You can't get rid of Rallying Cry because Rallying Cry already gives you optimally 20% more damage baseline, plus the 3% attack damage increase per power, which is usually around, you know, it's around max, so about 20%. So you can't get rid of it, so you run it in tandem. So, you know, 15% on top of that. Now Rallying Cry, instead of giving 20% more damage and 20% increased attack damage, now it gives you 35% by itself, right? 35% more. And then Intimidating Cry, it gives overwhelm, and it gives like literally double damage. Well, now it gives 15% more as well. So basically, when we have all of them, you know, all of them exerting like this, we get 45% more damage from the helmet alone, which is really nice. So you don't need to have them up all the time at all for it to feel comfortable. And you'll notice I chunk myself really hard when they're all active. However, if you compare, this is the funny thing. If you compare this to Bone Shatter numbers, it's actually incredibly similar. So like when you have one Warcry active, it's similar to having like 3 to 5 stacks of trauma on Bone Shatter. When you have 2 Warcries active, which is what so like I said before, while mapping, normally it's just Seismic for 90% of stuff. And then if I come across like a tanky rare, maybe like one that's running Steel Infused or Gargantuan, you know, mods that kind of brick my build, then I'll, you know, use Rallying Cry to get a bunch more damage on it. That's similar to having 10 trauma stacks. And then when you triple it, and you're using Intimidating Cry for like bosses, essence monsters, you know, and actual endgame bossing, it's similar to having around 20 stacks of trauma. So it's very similar to Bone Shatter in terms of the self damage, right? So this is kind of where I decided that I wanted to play Slayer, right? Because Slayer is really good for Bone Shatter. Slayer is really good for this because basically, you know, this is a typical setup that you would run on like pretty much like any Slayer build right now. Bane of Legends, which is, you know, just damage. Headsman, which is Cull. Brutal Fervor, which is your Overleech. And then Impact, which is a bunch of accuracy, which lets us run Precise Technique. And then also, you know, AoE and more damage as well. And the AoE, like 50% increase AoE from this, but you also get 10% from the small one. So this is actually 60% increase AoE. And you only need to kill 10 monsters to get the full 50% effect. So like while mapping, you have 60% increase AoE, as well as all the AoE from Seismic. So your EQs are hitting like an entire screen. It feels great. So you do get the AoE back. But basically, the way this maths out is while bossing, and this is why I said the character is primarily probably going to be EQ, because I think Echoes of Creation synergizes a lot more with EQ than it does with like Earthshatter, Ground Slam, or stuff like that, because you only want to scale basically the way that EQ works is if you get too much attack speed, it's technically an attack or a damage loss because you start to overwrite your shockwaves. So like you attack, there's a small delay, and then, you know, the shockwave comes out, right? If you attack too fast, you notice I just attacked 3 times there and I got 3 shockwaves. If you attack too fast, let's say I attack 3 times there and then I only get 2 shockwaves, right? You'll start overwriting shockwaves, which actually lowers your DPS. That's like a quick TLDR on how it works, which means we don't want to like endlessly scale attack speed, which means we'll have a lot more of our attacks overall being exerted by a Warcry. So what I did when I was mathing this out in PoB is it's like a loose napkin math. I just assumed a 100% uptime on Seismic and Rallying, like while bossing, right? Because Seismic is 5 attacks and Rallying is 6. Keep in mind that we don't have to deal with Second Wind anymore, so our Warcry cooldown is a lot shorter by default. And then Intimidating Cry and Seismic Cry both get cooldown recovery rate with quality. So when they're qualityed out, it'll be even faster. So we can assume roughly 100% uptime on Rallying and Seismic because they exert a lot of attacks and the cooldowns aren't very long, right? So that's just 30% more damage. Now, Intimidating Cry only exerts 3 attacks. So it exerts about half the attacks of the other 2. And it does get CDR, and we don't have to deal with Second Wind. So it may be a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less than this, but I assumed a 50% uptime on Intimidating, which from the helmet, it gives 15% more damage for each exerted attack. If we have a 50% uptime, that would be a 7.5% more damage multiplier, which means over the course of a fight, the helmet is giving us a 37.5% more damage multiplier. Again, it's like quick napkin math. It may be a little bit above that, it may be a little bit below that, but that's just to kind of put into perspective what the idea is there and like the kind of numbers that you can kind of expect from it, right? So that is what the helmet is giving us, as well as relieving socket pressure, as well as giving us access to some cool mechanics that typically only Bone Shatter has access to. So with our build, we actually get to scale endurance charges, and we run inexorable, just like you would on Bone Shatter, because anytime we attack here, will it refill my flask if I do this? No. Okay, hold on. Let me leave and then come back, because I actually don't know if the helmet can kill me. So if we pop a work right here and we attack, see, we get an endurance charge. So this was kind of my idea when I saw this helmet. The wording on it is suspiciously similar to Bone Shatter, and I'm assuming Ben did this on purpose. But the wording is suspiciously similar to Bone Shatter because it is. It is literally the same thing as Bone Shatter, which means anytime we get hit, we have a chance to get an endurance charge. We self-hit. That also means if you wanted to do crazy shenanigans, like Karn has been doing, where you craft gain onslaught when hit from essence crafting, one of the upgraded essences, I can't remember which one it is, then you have perma onslaught even while bossing, because whenever you attack, the helmet hits you, right? So there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with that, right? So something to keep in mind. That's how we're getting endurance charges, and this isn't not at all what the endgame passive tree is going to be like, but that's kind of the idea behind the helmet. That's the reason it works and everything else. I wouldn't be too scared of the self damage. When you have your endurance charges going and you have everything filled out, the self damage is fine, especially Slayer Overleach is crackhead, and it's really hard to die while that Overleach is going, right? Like you can see, it's like nothing, right? So let's move on to the passive tree. So basically I path down through attack speed. This was only for leveling, honestly, for that flat accuracy, because I just rushed precise technique in Act 1. You don't have to do that at all. I just did it for funsies. So I rushed, I will actually probably spec out of this and grab the fizz damage like after this video, by the way, because I forgot to unspec that. It was only for leveling. But path down here, Art of the Gladiator, you know, typical Slayer tree over here, Vol Pact and Vitality Void with the Leech Mastery for increased maximum life per second from Leech. Now, Hematophagy, I think is actually better, because it gives you more, but it also gives you 40% increased damage while leeching. But the thing is this is less points, and it gives us Mana Leech, and if I didn't take this, I'd have to get Mana Leech on a Jewel. And my current endgame POB only has 2 jewel sockets, and both of those jewel sockets are filled by unique jewels. One being Lord of Steel or Call of Steel to help with clear, and the other one being a Watcher's Eye that I got that was kind of nasty. So, you know, that's only 2 sockets I have allocated, so I don't want to have to rely on a jewel, a Viridian Jewel to get Mana Leech, right? So moving on, Precise Technique. If you guys don't know what Precise Technique does, basically it's 40% more attack damage, so it's a 40% more multi. If accuracy rating is higher than maximum life, never deal crits. So this kind of incentivizes us to have lower life, especially in SSF, where getting like really good gear is going to be hard. And you'll notice that I actually pathed up and grabbed Weathered Hunter. So this is something I didn't do on the Bone Shatter character, and it's something you can do on a Precise Technique character early on before you get all your good accuracy rolls to be able to, you know, run Precise Technique. But for this character, this is probably going to be a mainstay unless like I play him to the point of getting like GG gear. Like I literally, basically without this node, I literally need accuracy on a bunch of pieces of gear that are like T2 plus, while also having T1 spell sup rolls on every piece, like on my boots, my gloves, and my chest piece. So this does 2 things, right? Weathered Hunter gives accuracy, obviously, as you can tell, but it also gives resistance from all of these. This is 18% resist, right? Excuse me. And then the Mastery, if I will need it at some point, would be +3 accuracy per dex instead of +1. We don't care about the mana reservation efficiency because we're using Arrogance to reserve our life with it, right? So, yeah. This is probably going to be here for the entire character's lifetime. It just eases gearing so much, right? It gives us a bunch of leeway in terms of accuracy on our gear. And it also gives us leeway with resist, because currently there's a problem being presented here, right? The problem being presented is that due to playing precise technique, we need to have accuracy roll on a bunch of stuff. We need to have accuracy rolls on our rings. We need to have accuracy rolls on our gloves, because, and they're gonna need to be higher, because our helmet slot can't give us spell suppression, and it can't give us accuracy, which are two things that are basically mandatory. We need the accuracy to run precise technique, and we need spell suppression to not die, right? So this introduces a unique problem to this build that you wouldn't have playing something like Bone Shatter that can make gearing even more stringent. So getting resist here, since our suffixes are very tight, they basically need to be perfect with endgame gear, right? They need to be perfect. This gives us a lot of leeway in terms of accuracy and resistance, which are all of our suffix slots on our jewelry, right? Now, this, because like this build has three things that are very hard that you're gonna have to balance: accuracy, spell suppression, and resist, right? Precise technique builds already struggle balancing resist, because you'll notice that all three of those things are actually suffixes, right? So you have all of these mods that you need to get on all your gear, and they're all competing for basically the same slots. So it can make it hard to balance, right? So this gives us leeway with the resist and the accuracy, which is really nice. Now, how do we cap spell suppression on this build? Because this is something that's going to come up, because we don't get a helmet. And you'll also notice that because the helmet is a pure armor base, the spell suppression mastery doesn't give us the free +10. So when we path entrench, we actually are only getting 22% spell sup instead of 32. That's 10%, and that matters, okay? So we need a tier 2 or higher roll on our chest piece, our boots, and our gloves, and an anoint. And we will anoint instinct because it's cheap and it gives 10%, and that'll cap your spell sup. Now, if you play longer or you play in trade league, you can get a tier 1 on all three of those, and you'll be capped with entrench. But SSF, and assuming I don't play this character to 98 plus, or, you know, I just not assuming like good luck, or, you know, that I just harvest farm a ton, I'm not going to assume tier 1 spell sup on every piece, right? It is doable. I could probably farm it in a few days, but I just don't want to assume that, right? Especially considering I need to have resist and accuracy in order as well. But with tier 1 sup rolls on your gloves, your chest, and your boots, you actually do cap spell sup. Just on the dot, by the way. You don't go 1 point over. It's on the dot. It's 22, 22, 34, and then 22 from this. So it is close. It is very close. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, actually, you know, we'll go over that in a second. I'll finish the passive tree. So basically, we path over to the left. You need to grab 2 Warcry nodes here. This is what I've gone for. Admonisher is just a bunch of Warcry speed and some cooldown recovery. Warcry Mastery for cannot exert travel skills. You need to have this. You can level with slams if you want. Rush this node. Else you're going to be miserable, because every time you Warcry, you're going to leap slam, and then all your exerts are going to be gone, and it's going to suck. After that, pathing down for Measured Fury, which gives exerts an additional attack. I went for the cooldown instead of the Warcry speed path, because that's what you do. And then the Mastery is Warcries have a minimum of 10 power. Why do I care about this? Because of Rallying Cry. Getting that minimum power on Rallying Cry lets us actually like benefit from the buffs of it, because I've noticed that the AoE, especially when you don't have deep breaths taken, for like Rallying Cry's ability to count power for things to be in the AoE of it, including the Herald of Purity allies, which is what is going to be buffing us with all of our damage, is like pathetic. So like all the time I'd be while leveling, I was popping Rallying Cry, and when it buffs an ally, there's like a shing, and like swords pop up around them. Even when dudes were like right next to me, my Herald of Purity guys were like right next to me, it wasn't going off on them. So as soon as I took the minimum 10 power, it was a lot easier to keep up on the buffs. So that's why we've taken this. Endgame, what you would probably want to do is get Warcry Exert on a ring, if you can, if you're able to, and then take the 20% increased damage for each time you've Warcry recently, because that will be more damage overall. But if you can't get it, then it's not that big of a deal. It's just a minor damage increase. Now, if you're playing something like Earthshatter, this becomes a lot more important because you're Warcrying so much more frequently. But for EQ, it's still a decent damage upgrade, probably like a 5% damage increase for the build, but it's not like crazy. Whereas like Earthshatter, it's like attack, cry, like you'd have way more active, right? After that, grabbing Rampart. This is a 70% damage increase, by the way, or 72%. No, I'm wrong. They're not both 16, it's 14. So these two are 30, and then this last one's 40% increased damage, and then you take the Fortify Mastery for melee hits Fortify. So if you decide to play this with Ground Slam or Earthshatter, you actually don't need to grab one of these Fortification Masteries, either here or over here. You can just run, if you want to, you can just run Fortify as one of your links and get Fortify that way, which is easier, and it saves you passive points, which is huge. Past that, pathing down through Golem's Blood, grabbing the typical life masteries that you do, 10% increased max life, plus 50 max life. And then Hatchet Master, this is Onslaught on kill, it's attack speed, it's damage, it's everything you like, with the Axe Mastery for Onslaught effect, because now you have Onslaught. Don't grab Impale nodes while leveling, but when you do go Impale, Merciless Skewering, it's more damage than Harpooner, and it's the same amount of point investment. Champion of the Cause is Mana Reservation with Reservation Mastery. And then Soul of Steel, you know, a bunch of flat armor, percentage armor, max res, with the Armor Mastery for Determination mana res as well. Pathing through Bloodless, grabbing your last life mastery. Inexorable, I just covered this. You don't need this until you put on the helmet, because you won't be hitting yourself without the helmet, so this isn't really useful until then. Juggernaut, I don't need to explain that. Slaughter, don't need to explain that, it's damage. And then this is where we grab Axe Mastery for Rage on hit. And I will be grabbing Barbarism as well. I just haven't yet. I don't have the points. So right now I'm just putting them in the small points by Marauder start for life and armor. But then once I get 2 more levels, then I'm going to unspec out of here and put them into Barbarism instead. Finally, we go over here to the left. We have Warrior's Blood, Heart of the Warrior. You know, it's just a bunch of life and regen. And then attack speed, percent fizz. Born to Fight's a really good node. It's a really good 1-pointer. And then versatility. This is Dex, Int, and Global Accuracy. We mostly care about the accuracy increase and the Int here. And then that's pretty much everything here for the tree. After this, for pathing wise, I have some cool stuff. My POB is scaling endurance charges and frenzy charges, because I'm going to go for the chest mod for frenzy charge generation every X seconds, and then scale frenzy charge duration. You get 2 extra seconds here for 12 seconds, and then I'm going to be running 2 jewels. Getting the implicit from harvest rolls on both jewels will put me at 14 seconds, which means I only need a 13-second refresh rate on frenzy charges. The base, it's Exarch, right? The base Exarch currency is 15 seconds, which means I just need to get it once and then successfully hit 2 orbs of conflict, and I'll be at 13 seconds, and then I'm chilling. And then I'll have frenzy charges all the time. That's really useful because I don't plan on using Blood Rage in the final setup of the build. It saves me sockets, which I'll go over in a second. So that's the full passive tree. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Now I'm going to go over the skill gems. I'm not going to go over the gear yet. I'll go over the skill gems, because I'm sure a lot of you guys were wondering when I was going over the cries why I'm not using Enduring. So we have Intimidating Cry, Seismic Cry, Rallying Cry, and Life Tap all in the helmet. They have to go in the helmet. So why am I not using Enduring Cry? Well, this is why I thought Slayer would be really good for this. It self-hits. We get to take advantage of, you know, like Overleech to mitigate the self-damage. We get to take advantage of Inexorable to get Endurance Charge generation. Why is this a big deal? Well, here's the cool thing. On Slayer, you don't care about regen, right? Because you take Vol Pack, which means you can't regen health, ever. You can only leech health. Well, here's the thing, guys. Why did you take Enduring Cry before on a Slayer on a Slam build? it was basically just endurance charge generation. There was no other reason to run it, except for at the time, one of the Warcry nodes gave what the Mastery does now, where anytime you Warcried, you gained a percentage of your life, right? But you don't have that anymore. So what does Enduring Cry give us? Nothing. It gives us endurance charges. It's not, and it doesn't exert attacks, which means it doesn't synergize with this helmet at all, right? So it doesn't offer us anything for this build except for endurance charges. And if we can, you know, find a different way to get endurance charges, we don't need Enduring Cry anymore, right? So that's why I think this is really good for Slayer, because we just don't care about Enduring Cry at all anymore, which lets us run 3 War Cries that synergize with the helmet, letting us have a 45% more damage multi instead of just a 30% more damage multi, right? So that's the deal with the War Cries. Moving on to the chest piece, I'm running Impale support with EQ, Melee Fizz, less duration, and Fist of War. Now for my 6th link, it'll be close combat, or I have Awakened Brutality, so I might use that instead, because when that's leveled up, it crushes on hit, if I recall correctly. So that'll be a big damage boost, but it'll be one of those two. Right now I have War Banner in this socket, so like I said, I need gym sockets. This is one of the reasons why. In the boots, I'm running Molten Shell, cast when damage taken, increased duration, and Herald of Purity. So this is something I'm trying to utilize the same idea as the Bone Shatter build diary. I'm using a high level cast when damage taken with a max level Molten Shell because, you know, you self harm so much that you can proc, you can proc Molten Shell super easily, even if it's a high level. So Molten Shell on this build is a lot stronger than it usually is for builds. The last slot here, we have Herald of Purity. Don't need to say anything here. This is damage. It also is, you know, what gives you damage on Rallying Cry as well. So it's a must run. In the gloves, we're running Precision linked with Arrogance to make it reserve life instead of mana. And then Pride and Determination. And then basically I'm going to be rolling +1 to socketed AoE gems on the gloves at some point, but these gloves are trash. These are leveling gloves that I used. As you can see, they're item level 36. So yeah, that's you know, the aura setup. And then in the axe, I'm running Leap Slam, faster attacks, Life Tap, Splitting Steel, Ancestral War Chief, and Blood Rage. So Splitting Steel, because this is gonna get asked, Splitting Steel just lets me use this. It's Call of Steel. Anytime you impale something, they get like impaled for a fraction of the damage you deal. It's like a debuff on them. When you use Call of Steel, it'll rip out your impale stacks, and with either the Impale Mastery or a Lord of Steel jewel, specifically you want the one that gives increased AoE and increased use speed. It is the best one. With the Lord of Steel jewel, when you do that, it'll have a really big AoE and it'll be obviously very fast. And then that will supplement your clear a lot. There's always a bunch of people that are like, oh, I played this slam build, or I played this, and they're playing something that utilizes Impale and they're not using Call of Steel and like complaining that the clear felt bad. Utilize Call of Steel. And if you don't have a Lord of Steel jewel, you need to be taking the mastery that says Call of Steel has increased use speed and increased AoE. The jewel is literally just like a, you know, like a 2 times better version of the mastery. But if you don't have the jewel yet, 100% run the mastery. It's like mandatory. It's going to make clear feel a million times better. And clearing with Call of Steel is actually pretty fun. I like it a lot. So that's the deal there. And then, like I said, so the build is short on sockets, as you can probably tell. So there's stuff I want to fit in, right? So I have Berserk that I would like to fit in. So at some point I want to replace Blood Rage once I get my Frenzy Charge generation on a chest piece that I actually plan on using, right? And then War Banner needs a home as well. So currently on the build, I'm planning to be running 1 Unset Ring and 1 Vermilion Ring. And yeah, I mean, technically, if I wanted to, I could run a double Unset Ring setup, but I feel like that would be pain champ, so I kind of don't want to do that. To fit in like Maim on the Ancestral War Chief, because it is a damage increase, but I don't want to I would like to have at least 1 vermilion, especially because you only scale like a 170% increased life with like my level 95 POB. So yeah. Anyway, that stuff's subject to change, but I 100% will not be running Blood Rage. That's for sure. Anyway, getting into the gear, helmet is the helmet. I guess I'll address the Ashes of Stars first because I know people are going to complain because people complained in my last video about me using Mage Blood. Okay, like, you can't farm in Ashes, you can't buy in Ashes, you don't play enough, whatever. Okay, you don't need to use an Ashes in this build, okay? You don't need to. If you don't want to run in Ashes, first off, the easiest option, if you don't care about spell suppression, if you're playing in softcore or something and you don't care about spell suppression, just anoint Charisma. It's the same thing. Now, if you want spell suppression cap still, you're going to have to do 2 things, basically. First off, you're going to have to take the small node here for 8% increased reservation efficiency. And then you're either going to need a Drox amulet rolled with like Pride mana reservation efficiency or Determination mana reservation efficiency, or get a Helm chant for reservation efficiency on one of those auras, or craft a chest piece with Loathing Essences. So why? Basically, Loathing Essences, if used on a helmet, which we can't because we're using a unique helmet, or a chest piece, will guarantee a mod increase mana reservation efficiency for skills. So you just want to hit it with Shriekings or higher, a Shrieking or a Deafening, and then get your mana reservation that way. So you don't need an Ashes to make the build function at all. I just had one lying around. I threw it on the build. Okay, it's not mandatory. Once again, it does not enable the build. It just supplements the build and saves me an affix on my chest piece. That's literally it. So yeah. Moving on from there, currently I am using two stone rings. They're kind of whatever. They just basically, they have an open prefix and accuracy on them. So this has T1 accuracy, this has T2 accuracy with an all res roll. They have open prefixes to roll Elrion minus mana cost crafts, though realistically I don't even think I need them. As you can see, my mana like doesn't move at all. Because we can actually check this real quick, I guess. If I take this 8%er and I take off the Ashes, I'm gonna need to grab an amulet. I guess I'll prove it to you guys. Yeah. So with just this 8%, I have 18 mana, and I can just barely not sustain EQ. Because remember, the only thing that costs mana on this entire build is just EQ. Nothing else costs mana, and I can almost sustain it. So yeah. You would just need a Loathing or any of the other options I just mentioned, right? But that's it. That's literally it. You don't need an Ashes at all. So just to get that out of the way. So yeah, they have accuracy, all res, and I have double Elrion crafts in the chest piece. This is just whatever. I'm running a chest piece with some life, an open prefix for the percent life craft, and some resistances. In the boots, I'm running 2 tones that help with res, life, some res, chaos res most importantly, and then open prefix for chill immunity. Gloves, same thing. Literally been using these since like Act 4. It's just life and res, nothing special. There is one special thing about these. So you'll notice it says 10% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks. So, like I said earlier, we're actually running War Banner, not Dread Banner. So, if you're a math head, right, you'll probably notice, wait a minute, Biz. Merciless Skewering only gives 30% to impale, and the Impale Gem only gets 60. Where are you getting that last 10% to hit up 100% from? Well, I'm hitting it from a glove implicit with Eldritch Currency, right? So Eater of Worlds, the lowest level 1, it gives 5%. So all I did was hit a 5% on this and then use the Orb of Conflict once to level it up to 10%, and that's it. However, if you don't have access to that yet, you can literally just spend 1 passive point here that gives 10% chance to impale, and you're done. So if you don't have the implicit on gloves, don't freak out, you're fine. You just spend 1 passive point here, and then you get 100% chance to impale. Beyond that, the belt is just kind of whatever. It's a Stygian Vise. I hit with armor essences, and it rolled life with a bunch of resists. Then the abyssal jewel I'm running is life and a little bit of resist. Now, just like with the Bone Shatter character, I'm eventually going to want to run a murderous or a searching, I believe searching can roll it, jewel with basically just life, but tier 2 or tier 1 accuracy roll, because being able to roll like 300 plus accuracy on a jewel that just goes in your belt for free is really OP, and it helps a lot for the accuracy problems that Precise Technique has. Moving on, the axe is nothing special. Like I said, it's about 600 PDPS, maybe 650. It's nothing super crazy, especially in the era of recombinators. It's just decent enough early on. Tier 3 flat fizz, tier 7 hybrid, tier 4 percent fizz, and then bench crafted on attack speed. In the era of recombinators, it is ridiculously easy to make 800, 900 PDPS axes like nothing, even in SSF. If you're playing in trade, you could easily get something better than this, even at the end of like your day 1 on the character. But 600 is enough. As you can see, I'm clearing low reds at level 80 with no problem at all. Just like killing the map boss in 2 hits. Like it's a meme. The build does a lot of damage, has pretty good survivability as well. It's been fun. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say. Like I said, if this is the only episode you see for this character, don't be too surprised, but it does have the potential to have more. Other than that, I think this is where I'm going to end this build diary episode. If you guys have any questions about the build or anything, feel free to ask down in the comments. Also, you know, time to plug Discord. Please join my Discord. I help people with build stuff, POB, all the time. Basically, anytime I'm not asleep, I'm in there helping people. So I don't charge people for it. I don't make people pay. I'm just there available to help. Or if you just want to talk about the game, we have a cool community in my Discord. So feel free to join the Discord. Also, I stream daily on Twitch. As soon as you see this video go up, I will probably be live. I stream a lot all the time. So please come by my Twitch stream. Don't be afraid to say hi. Even if you don't want help specifically with something or you just want to hang out, I'm cool with that too. Please check out my Twitch. Finally, follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to use Twitter more. So if you have a Twitter or whatever, if you're ever on there, throw me a follow. I have like no followers on Twitter, but I am trying to use Twitter more. And I think that's everything. If you like the video, leave me a thumbs up. It does help me a lot with the algorithm. If you didn't like the video, feel free to leave me a thumbs down and tell me what you think I can do better. And if you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, please do subscribe, because it does help show support for the channel. And with all that said, that's going to be the end of this one. Appreciate you guys a bunch. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.